Hello, guys, welcome. I'm back again, and today I've brought you some another episode of the recent incident of Israel's attacks on Qatar. So let's just begin. Let's start it. An Israeli strike inside Qatar, in the heart of the Gulf, is not just a bold military move, it's a potential turning point for Middle East diplomacy. Today, I'll explain exactly what happened, why Qatar matter in the first place, how the Gulf states are reacting, and what it means for the future of normalization between Israel and the Arab world, actually the Muslim world, I would say. Stick around. This is the story governments are racing to rewrite. So, quick reminder context. So, before we get into the new development, quick context. Since October 2023, the Israel Hamas war has roiled the region. Qatar has been one of the very few Gulf states to act as a continuous intermediary, a mediator, hosting Hamas figures and hosting rounds of negotiations and hostage for ceasefire talks. That mediator role made Doha, Qatar, unusually influential in managing both humanitarian flows and stopgap deals. What happened, the recent strike early this month, back in few days, Israeli forces struck a target in Doha, Qatar, that the Israeli government said was connected to Hamas. Reports indicate the strike killed several people, seven number of people, including one Qatari policeman, includes Hamas members and Qatari security person. Doha loudly condemned the attack as a breach of its sovereignty and said it endangered Doha's mediation role. The United Nations Human Rights Council moved to hold an urgent debate about the incident while Arab and Muslim foreign ministers gathered in Doha to craft a joint response. Washington has been publicly pressed to clarify its position. The U.S. diplomatic missions were reported to be engaging rapidly with both sides. Important is this was a day strike in it was a daytime strike in Doha and not a strike inside Gaza or Lebanon. That's why reactions were immediate and sharp. So, Qatar's leadership framed the attack as a state terrorism, saying it violated international law and undercut trust in negotiations. Several Gulf states and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation rapidly condemned the strike or called for emergency diplomatic steps, and Kuwait and Pakistan pushed for a formal US response. At the same time, not all GCC capitals delivered an identical line. The event has this event has exposed difference in exposure, but also a degree of unity in condemning an attack on a Gulf state. Qatar's influence in Gaza diplomacy rested on two basic elements: trust and access. It hosted Hamas political figures, not the military leadership, but Hamas political figures, and served as the channel for humanitarian flows, hostage negotiations, and coordination with the US and other third parties involved in it. An attack on Qatari soil strikes at the first of those pillars, trust, onto the United States, Washington, D.C. It strikes the trust, what Qatar does on Washington, D.C., USA. Doha has said its mediation is not valid right now and paused certain efforts. Particularly, that means near term ceasefire or hostage release progress is at strike because one of few reliable meeting rooms and back channels has been compromised. Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, including UAE, has reportedly banned the travelers having Israeli passport to arrive in their airports. They can't arrive now. The ban is valid since yesterday. And also, they are planning to deport Indians working inside Saudi Arabia, in UAE, in Qatar, and Kuwait because India is the main ally of the Israel. Beyond politics, Doha now faces a security calculus it's previously downplayed, hosting non state armed actors while preserving sovereign air safety becomes costlier. Qatar must now decide double down on mediation and accept security risks, demand stronger guarantees from external partners, including the US, or step back from high risk mediation. Each choice carries consequences. Stepping back undermines Qatar's regional prominence. Staying in risks more violent blowback if another incident occurs. So let's widen the lens. The Gulf Cooperation Council states (GCC) that includes Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar have been moving along divergent paths since the Abraham Accords in 2020. The Gaza was tested those pathways. Many GCC capitals quietly advanced economic and security ties with Israel, or at least entered the idea. But the war and now a strike on a GCC capital have shifted this calculus altogether. There are two big effects to watch here: temporary unity around condemnation of the strike, the Gulf states and other Arab capitals publicly rallied to repudiate strikes on Gulf soils. This is classic defensive solidarity. Kuwait and the GCC raised the matter at the United Nations and in regional forums. The UAE and Bahrain, the UAE and Bahrain, which normalized with Israel, will want to preserve their security relationships with the US and their economic ties with Israel, but they also must manage domestic and regional opinion. The strike empowers domestic critics of normalization and strengthens the hand of states wanting the firmer Arab bargaining posture. In short, normalization becomes political costlier in immediate term, you know. So long-term diversions on normalization, the attack complicates the political environment for any further normalization deals. Saudi Arab's caution approach towards this incident, alleged already toughened by the Gaza war while we speak, now faces a political constraint. Moving publicly towards Israel could be like perceived domestically and endorsing actions that violated Gulf sovereignty. Expect a slowdown here in any planned diplomatic steps or and more public preconditions being demanded. Now to economics, the GCC economies are not collapsing at all. In fact, the Gulf outlook this year was moderately positive, with growth projections rising due to oil and non oil initiatives Governments are spending heavily on infrastructure and diversification to absorb young populations, but political instability raises risk premiums for foreign investors, particularly in sectors tied to cross border security, air links, logistics, regional events. The World Bank and other multilateral forecasts still expect growth in 2025 as we speak. But geopolitical shocks can quickly dent investor sentiment if the security picture deteriorates at large. The US sits in the middle. Washington wants to protect partners and preserve diplomatic channels. It also is Israel's key ally. The hit in Doha places the USA in a pickle. It can either lean into damage control, support Doha security, and reassure Gulf partners, or be perceived as tacitly approving Israel's action, which would badly strain ties with Gulf capitals. Expect intense shuttle diplomacy, U.S. envoys to Doha, and public statements affirming Gulf sovereignty, and quite back-channeling with Israel. Three plausible scenarios, straight realistic analysis. The best case scenario, restoration and managed mediation. What Qatar can do. Qatar receives firm security guarantees, including intelligence sharing and perhaps airspace safeguards from the US and other partners. Doha relaunches constrained mediation with renewed protocols. Meetings move to neutral third sites or remote formats, and small hostage aid deals are reactivated now. GCC political unity is sustained, and normalization talks stay in the freezer but aren't permanently derailed. Most likely, Qatar temporarily suspends active mediation, negotiations slow, Gulf capitals publicly condemned the strike on the media and everywhere on public forum. Maybe recall or downgrade some diplomatic interactions temporarily, and Saudi others delay any forward movement on normalization. Investment continues, but political risks is priced higher. So war cases, escalations, and fragmentation here. If another strike or retaliatory violence occurs in a Gulf capital, the Gulf could fracture. Some states might impose stricter limits on Israel ties. Security pacts might be reshaped, more contingent on US guarantees, and regional friction could intensify between states that favor normalization and those taking a hard line, a hard line. That would be damaging economically and strategically for everyone in the region, be it Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, Qatar itself, and United Arab Emirates, including Pakistan also, because Pakistan is on the front line helping Qatar give the security and protection and also being a part in retaliatory action towards Israel. Oh, what to watch next? Near term signals, what it gives, like whether Doha reopens meditation channels and under what conditions. Number two, statements and visits from the US Secretary of State or special envoys to the Gulf. Third, any former GCC communiques or coordinated diplomatic actions for movement on normalization. Any Saudi public precondition. And five, investor signals, bond spreads, or sovereign ratings adjustment if political risk spikes. So, what's the bottom line here? An Israel strike inside Qatar is a dramatic event with outsized diplomatic consequences. It weakens an effective mediator, forces the Gulf to revisit its risk calculus, and slows, maybe stalls, normalization momentum. But the Gulf is resilient. Economic plans and statecraft won't vanish overnight. The defining question is whether international partners can be shore up Qatar's security and restart meaningful mediation. If not, expect a period of diplomatic chill and increased regional complexity. If you found this useful, like and subscribe to this channel. Go to the description of this video. Go follow me on TikTok, Instagram. You can connect me with WhatsApp. The links are in the description. And in the comments, tell me which scenario do you think is most likely be to happen. I'll pin the best replies and do a follow up. Thanks for watching and stay safe, stay healthy, enjoy the life. I see you in the next video. Till then, subscribe so you don't miss out. Okay? See ya. Bye bye.